You're listening to the Literary Lounge with Dawn Bates on Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the weekend. Although I woke up this morning and I was so not ready for anything. You know those times when you just have a bad dream and you wake up and you think it is real? Oh my gosh. I was dreaming of my old dog. I looked at Chewy. I was like, oh my God, she's still here. It was time for cuddles. Yeah, it was not the greatest morning, but you know, you just pull yourself up and you get on with it, don't you really? But yeah, so how are we all today? Are we all ready for the weekend? It's going to, Chewy and I got here this morning and it was really, really warm and I was like, I think it's going to rain. And yes, we've had a little bit of rain. I'm not the weather girl though, and if you put me out at sea, I will be able to tell you. Well, I mean, I'm pretty good at letting you know when the rain is coming. But today we've got a bit of a mix-up of tunes. I haven't actually got the Miriam Margoyles book with me today because I've read nothing of it this week. And we just have weeks like that. You know, I have been doing a lot of writing and editing, though, with the Crossing the Line book that I'm working on at the moment, my third book that we're turning into two books, ready to answer all the questions from my readers over the last few years. And yeah, that's brought up a lot. That has brought up a lot. It's like, gosh, you know, things we go through, the things that make us stronger, the things that we forget about and go, yeah, I did that. I got through that. That was a tough time, but I got through it. And I think a lot of us tend to forget about the things that we've gone through, and we forget that we have this innate power within us. And I did get here early, and I know this is probably not a superpower for a lot of people, but we have the mixer that we had last week because the other one is being repaired. And as we are a community radio station, you know, it's not a great thing when things get broken. You know, so we do like our advertisers and our sponsors, and you know, they help keep the station running and everything all up to date. So it wasn't just me having a bit of a what should we say, a brain fart last week. It was actually a very different mixer. Even Dave looked at it and went, yeah, no, Dawn. So I felt a little bit better afterwards. I was a bit emotional last week after I left. I was like, oh, do you know, I've done it again. But, you know, we're here. I read books. I'm not very technically minded. I used to have an IT company. I used to test the software just to make sure that it was intuitive. We all know that I'm a writer and that I love books, and I do write things down. And I'm actually currently looking for a really nice cover for a Filofax. And I know that probably sounds really old-fashioned, but there is actually something about writing down what it is that you're planning to do, writing down the things that you intend to do, the things you want to achieve, the experiences you want to have, the person that you want to become. Like I've said before, journaling is a very, very, very powerful process. So writing down all the things that you want to do, instead of just relying on the automation of calendars, you know, really, really write it down in your day to view, in your week to view, in your month to view. And I know that might sound like a lot of work, but then you remember what it is that you've got to get done. And ladies, those of you who are in the menopause with me, oh my God, game changer. Honestly, game changer. Although a chap yesterday looked at me and was saying, you know, we're going to be bringing in, you know, all this childcare. And I'm thinking, well, I hope you don't think I'm going to be having childcare. This is a meno belly. This is not a baby belly. And I thought, oh my gosh, have things really got that bad? Does he really think that I'm pregnant? That was like, made me take stock. But I did join the gym last week. I am actually getting out of the goldfish bowl where I live. And I've joined a gym. I haven't been in the gym for a long time. And so I've got a few tunes that are going to get us through today. And I figured out, I think I figured out this piece of tech. I've got the button pressed, so all the lights are on. hoping there's someone home. Why do we say that? I might do a show on that, actually, where we actually look at where everything that we say comes from. So, yeah, we've got some good tunes today, obviously, and we're going to get through today. I want to share with you the text number. So if you do want to join in the show today, it's 07354 770 So text the show if there's anything that comes up you want to share. If you've got an event on when it's like at your bookstore, if you've got anything creative that's happening in the local area, then do let us know. I will let you know that I went to a art gallery exhibition last night in Swansea. I went to Swansea. Now, that might not sound big for a lot of you here in Wales, but I'm actually getting on the train and I'm going exploring. I'm attending meetings out of Cardiff because I want to see Wales. You have such a beautiful country here. You have such a great literary history. You know, one of the reasons why I came here to Cardiff wasn't just because of the sailing, wasn't just because of the diversity and the richness of cultures and identities here, but it was because of the literary history. You know, and as a sailing writer who loves to travel the world and mix with people from all around the world and learn and, you know, really enjoy the music and the crafts and the food, especially the food, and, you know, just like, just the warm embrace of different cultures. Cardiff, Wales just seemed, you know, the best place because what was Cardiff built on? You know, the coal mining industries, you've got the trading, you have the salt and all of this, and yeah, such a beautiful place, a melting pot, as they say. And a friend of mine, Louise, she's taken me out to Dylan Thomas' his area, but I went to Swansea last night. A friend of mine, Yaz Crawford, she's exhibiting her stunning photography. She does these prints and imagery based on scientific, like biology, but with nature, and I mean, it's just, you just can't explain it. It's just incredibly moving and deep and rich. So if you're in Swansea and you want to go and look at some incredible artwork, some of the other exhibitors there, I'm not just going to plug Yaz, but some of the other exhibitors there, you know, there's one lady there, I forget her name, but she's presenting the impact of children with disabilities, and one of them being her son. But it's Neuro Expressions. It's been hosted by Nathan and the team at the Elysium Gallery in Swansea, a minute's walk from the train station, so there's no excuse. So get yourself down there, go and have a look. It really is an incredible exhibition. And there was one gentleman who's got an exhibit on the spellings and the phonetic way that people with different neurodiversities look and spell things. And I read it, and it's like, you can so read it. It's just brilliant the way he spelt things, and it made me question, you know, when we look at spellings, taking the British and the American way of spelling things. Friends of mine who were teachers when we all lived out in Egypt, I worked for British international schools, they worked for the American international schools, and we would tease each other on how, you know, the British gave America, you know, such a fabulous language, and what did they do? They went and ruined it by changing how we spell things, removing the letters. But if any of you have seen the Michael McIntyre sketch where he's talking about the silent letters of British English, honestly, when I love Michael McIntyre, absolutely. Sometimes I don't know whether I can breathe or whether I want to cry, whether I need the toilet, but I mean, even my eldest son, Khalid, turned around and said to me, "Mum, are you breathing? Are you dying? What's going on with you?" Michael McIntyre, absolutely brilliant. And I also like Ricky Gervais, but there we go. You can like both. Absolutely, we can like both. But yeah, so it's just really interesting the way that this gentleman, depicted the way that we spell and the impact it, the way words are written. And I remember when I first came here to Cardiff, and I was talking about going to Sophia Gardens, and people were like, where? I was like, Sophia Gardens. And they were like, oh, you mean Sophia Gardens? And I realised that, the vowel consonant vowel, or the consonant vowel consonant patterns of pronouncing things, it doesn't apply here. And it's all these little things that, being English, living in Wales, it really does make you stop and reconsider. Because when I hear people talking about this country, what they're actually talking about is the nation of Britain. They're not actually talking about the country of Wales. They're talking about, the whole the whole nation, where you've got Scotland, England, and Wales. And when I stop and go, do you mean Wales or do you mean Britain? Because if you mean Britain, it's a nation, And for me, I am a word nerd. I do like to be exacting with my words. I don't always succeed, but then that's okay. I do a better job than ChatGPT, that's for sure. Oh my gosh. I did something this week because somebody said to me, Dawn, you should instead of just discounting AI to help you write books, I'm like, why would I need ChatGPT to help me write a book? I'm a great writer. This is what I do. This is my superpower. Mixers, not so much. Writing, absolutely. So I tried something this week, and I tell you what, I nearly threw my laptop in the river. I was so cross with ChatGPT. I gave it a sample of one of the chapters that I'm editing, and I thought, let me just try this. I can't really discredit it if I've never really used it for this. So I went through it. Give me, look for repetition loops, which is something that you're saying the same thing, but you're writing it in different ways. And, sometimes when you're writing it, you want to have those to actually really drive home a point or present it in different ways so it really lands with the readers. But sometimes they can be a bit monotonous and it can bore the readers. And bearing in mind the book that I'm editing at the moment and turning into 2 books has already been in the top 3 books on Goodreads, which is by no mean feat. It came back and it had removed all of the key details, all the sentence. It had put them in those really short, snappy sentences, and it just completely ruined it. I'm like, I didn't ask you to remove all of that. I just asked you to look for repetition loops. It didn't do it in my style. And I was like, you know what? I know you need to train it, but when writing is your superpower, just get on and write. And the thing is, when you're using something like that, it loses all the sentient points, the human points that really mean something. So there's a part of it that it removed. Bearing in mind, I'm setting the scene for my life before I went to Scotland and got arrested. So one of my favourite things to do was to go into my parents' back garden, sit on the bench, and I'd love to wear my dad's hoodie and his slippers. That was my thing, my morning coffee in my dad's slippers and his hoodie. And that was a really poignant piece in the chapter. Sitting there, lots of fields around me, just listening to bird song. And it completely wiped it out. It just completely disregarded it. And it's those little things that are the biggest things in a lot of writing. And they actually demonstrate and show rather than tell. And it moves the readers. And when you're using things like ChatGPT, it's not human. It doesn't understand these things. And it takes so long to train it. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday at the political hustings at the Cardiff University. It wasn't really a hustings, but it was. It's not like the ones I used to go to and really used to get a debate going with those. I absolutely loved them. Not that I can discuss party politics today at all, but I do encourage everybody to go and vote in one way or another. But we were talking about all the different ways in which you could use AI, whether it's Claude or Grok or ChatGPT, as I like to call it, and all of the others like DeepSeeker, if you're looking at working in China. But again, are they really? It's like, if you want a good meal, are you going to use a microwave meal? No, you're not. You're going to think about making something that reminds you of home, or going home for your mum's cooking. Even if it was terrible cooking, you want your mum's cooking. There are times you want your mum's cooking. Or are you going to go fine dining? Now, I love Gem 42 out in Newport. I think they're absolutely amazing. Their taster menus, and the art, it's art on a plate, but the plate and the crockery they use is art as well. So if you've never been to Gem 42, then I highly recommend it. Now, I'm going to play as a song now. I'm hoping I'm going to get it right. But this one is about it's another Teddy Swim song. And it's something that came up while I was writing the book, facing the things that I've been through and actually really acknowledging who I am. So this is Face Myself by Teddy Swim. You're listening to the Literary Lounge with Dawn Bates on Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM. Right, there we go. That was Riders on the Storm. That is one of my favourite tunes. The remix of it. Well, I mean, I loved it the first time round, and I have a very, very, very cool memory attached to it. I remember one night after a night out, we'd been out all night, and I remember lying down in the lounge, and my head was just resting on the palms of my hands, like when you're just lying down on your front, you've got your hands up and you're resting your head on your hands, and all of a sudden, my now ex-husband, he came up and he put the speaker right by my ear with that tune, and it was just like so surreal, and it was just like it just filled my head. It was just such a powerful moment. But yeah. Anyway, I've messaged the technical team, so hopefully we'll be able to sort things out before the end of the show. But I'm going to carry on, because one of the other things that it can get really frustrating. You can probably feel the frustration in my voice. I am that overachiever. I like to get things right. I like it when things work. And I like it when I know what I'm doing, and it's like I followed the instructions. I'm quite an intelligent woman. Some people would say I'm a very intelligent woman. I'm not going to say not. But when things don't go our own way, how do we respond to them? How do we... because we can only control so much, right? We can only control our reaction to something. We can't control the weather. We can't control other people as much as some people like to. And as we know, there is quite a lot of bits and pieces that are going on in the world that people are having to live with. And it's not really that great. So I'm going to be playing the ads now for 9:30. So they're now coming on for you. So I'm going to be quiet, and you can listen to the ads for 9:30. Can't believe we're already 30 minutes into the show. But here we go. Here they are.
Planning your perfect wedding? Well, don't miss the unique wedding fair experience at the historic Masonic Hall in Cardiff. Sunday the 13th of April, 11 till 3. Enjoy live jewellery, floristry and hair and makeup demos. Find your dream gown and unwind at the Chill Out Bar with live music. The whole family's welcome. Free tickets for a limited time only at nationalweddingexhibitions.co.uk. That's nationalweddingexhibitions.co.uk.
Next contestant, your chosen subject is tax.
Said no one ever. HMRC doesn't expect you to be a tax expert, but knowing the basics will build your confidence and help you steer clear of any tax surprises. So check our simple explainers to fill your knowledge gaps, from business essentials to pensions and tax. Search HMRC Tax Confident to learn more.
Drugs stay in your system longer than you think. So you could fail a police drug test days later.
Drug test positive.
Be banned from driving for a minimum of 12 months.
Come with me, please, sir.
And have a criminal record for years.
And turn to the side, please.
Which could cost you your job.
So sorry, I'm going to have to let you go.
Is risking your future really a road you want to go down? When you let drugs drive, you lose control of your life. Think. Don't put drugs in the driving seat.
Ar y tri yn chwarter I 5. Newydd fod yn siopa gyda wraig I brynu dillad newydd am y tro cyntaf ers sbel. Teimlo'n dda yn fy siaced newydd. Mae hi'n gweud dyma be mae pawb yn gwisgo. Oedd hi ddim yn jocan chwaith. Dyma rhyw foi ifanc olygus yn dod ar y tren yn gwisgo rinion siaced. Mae wraig yn closo mewn atau a sibrwd. Mae'n siwto ti'n well. Dwi'n tynnu molau mewn a gwenu. Trefnidiaeth Cymru. Yr ede sy'n clymu Cymru.
Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM, the sound of the capital.
There you go, the sound of the capital. That's what we are. We're not just the sound of the capital, though, are we? We are, we do go out much further. We do go out worldwide. We've got a lot of followers and listeners in from overseas. I know that, we're broadcasting this across my own podcast channels that goes out to India, France, Germany. So if you've got an event on and you want to attract an international audience, then consider advertising here with us at Radio Cardiff. And if you've got anything to that you want to add to the show, whether it's me or somebody else, you can always text the show on 07354 770 837. I mean, I come in here on a Friday morning and I look at all of the messages that that are there for the team, and it's really nice to see the engagement that people have with the show, learning about all the different things that people are talking about, and it just makes you feel that you belong in a wider community, because sometimes you're in the studio. I mean, I have Chewy with me. I mean, this morning her tummy is rumbling. I have no idea why. She had her breakfast. This dog, she's just adorable. She makes friends everywhere. She does like a tickle tax. We call it the tickle tax because, she will come up to you and she will be really friendly, but she will want you to tickle her tummy. And she's always got a stick, and she does make a lot of people smile around Cardiff, which is really lovely. And she's had this week with her by my side while I've been writing and editing this book. It brought back when I lost my other dog. So that was Chewy's husband. They got together and they made magic, and they had two litters, and it really, and I think with the dream that I had last night, it really upset me, and I was just like, I'm not ready. Like, we're living our best life, Chewy. There is no way you're going yet. And it was a really profound dream, and I often wonder what, I've always looked into dreams and found out what they mean, but I don't know if there are any of you out there that go through this, but sometimes the dreams can be so real, and they really bring out all of the emotions that you're feeling. And just thinking about Kelt, I mean, he was hilarious. He was a dog that would not go into the river, unlike Chewy, but if he got dirty, he would go to the bathroom, and he would, if we'd been out on a walk, wouldn't even want to touch the water. He'd be like, "Oh, what's that wet stuff?" But he got dirty when we were out on a walk, while I'm thinking about what I'm writing, and I'm just being grateful for being out in nature and the life that we lead. We'd go back, and he'd go straight to the bathroom, and he'd expect to be put in the bath, and he would be there, and he'd turn around, and he'd want you to missed a bit, get that bit. He'd sit there with his hair, he'd want you to blow dry him, and he would loved going sailing with me. And, he sailed with me around the Channel Islands on tall ships. Chewy, on the other hand, will go into the river. She wants to go into the River Taff on a regular basis. It's a bit too deep for you, Chewy. So when we do go up into the river, she always wants to go. but she does not like sailing. She does not like walking over bridges. I don't understand it. You know, she's like, well, she wants to be in it, not on it. But we're all on it in one way or another, aren't we? But this book, Crossing the Line, it really has challenged me. And I mean, there's a lot more research that obviously has come to light since we wrote the first edition. And I always say to authors, you know, when you are looking at redoing your book or you're looking at doing a second edition, why are you doing it? Why would I want to put myself through the memories of what happened in Scotland? I mean, yes, I won. I beat the police. Of course I did. I mean, it's ridiculous the charges they brought against me. It's like, really? You're not allowed to do that? I'm a police assessor. I know you're not allowed to do that. I know about how you're supposed to collect evidence. And, you know, and this was the thing, as the court case went on, and I'm reading it now, and I'm just like, my gosh, how did they even think they were going to get away with it? How did they even think that what they were doing would not come out? And, you know, there have been lots of things since in the last 10 years that have come out about Police Scotland. You know, the racism inside of it, the sexism, you know, we know that there's corruption in, you know, lots of different things, you know, whether it's private industry, whether it's, you know, different parts of government, whether it's, you know, some of the services that come out or that are there to, because I mean, let's just look at the word civil servants. They are there to serve the civilians. That is something that we have to remember. And if we're not being served by all the things that we do, we've just had an ad about being tax experts. Now, the thing is, and I don't know if many of you know this, but when you look at, as a business owner, we have to pay our taxes, and they have to be filed and they have to be signed off. Not even HMRC have submitted their accounts for the last 22 years, and they have not been able to sign them off because they're not accurate. And yet they come after us for our money. And I was saying to someone the other day, you know, as a business owner, we have so many things to do. Because we not only have we got to actually run the business and like strategize and, you know, come up with all of these ideas of how we're going to drive it forward, what team members we're going to bring on, how we're going to, you know, generate all the sales, and we do all the marketing, and we have to do all of this accounting. But if the people that are supposed to be there to hold us accountable are not being held accountable themselves, doesn't that just make a mockery of things? So, yeah, civil servants, they're there to serve the civilians. And if they're not, well, you know, there's that. But I'm not allowed to get political. I'm not allowed to speak about party politics, so I'm not going to. But, you know, as a business owner and as somebody who's lived around the world, I really do want to make sure that I'm living in the right place. You know, where is it that... where we're living, what is it that brings us joy? Now, I wanted to share this thing because, like, you know, I go sailing. When we look at, you know, your Welsh poet and writer Dylan Thomas, you know, who was born in Swansea, where I was yesterday, and he died in 1953. And I just think how much the world has changed since then. But when you look he was such a young chap. You know, he was only born in 1914. And the things that he must have seen, he had such rich material to tap into. And the pain. And there's something that we say within the writing community about, you know, great poetry comes from great pain. And I don't really hear, you know, we know that he's a great writer. We know that he was a Welsh legend. But how many kids in schools today are taught his poetry? How much of the Welsh history is being taught? And I do wonder how because being English here in Wales, it does come with some challenges, and I was talking to my personal trainer the other day. I was saying that, I just love how friendly people are here. I've only been here 2 years, and the friendliness of people, I love walking down the street because people always say good morning. You walk down the street, and I love hearing all the different languages. I love hearing Welsh. I really do. I just think, God, it's just... And I'm learning what the letters mean. I really do. I'm doing my best to learn Welsh whilst doing everything else. But sometimes my brain is not coping. So, for example, this week, when I was writing, I wrote the introduction for both the books, Crossing the Line and Mothers Like You, which is something that was said to me by a police officer in Oban. So we've used that as the title for the next book. And as I'm going through it, I was so tired because I want to obviously keep a lot of the meat of the book, but I'm removing repetition loops, ones that are not necessary. I'm removing a lot of the side characters because with all of the research and the questions that my readers have sent to me, because they want to know certain things about what happened. And I was reading some about Dylan Thomas, and he stories and radio broadcasts, and writing stories for radio is not that easy, because it's like when people are writing books, are they considering what it's going to sound like on an audiobook? Are they looking at how when you're writing a stage play for a play for radio, it's a whole other level of skill. And I often wonder, if he was alive today, what he would be making of all of this. I mean, I've seen a picture of him on the internet of him in 1937, and he looks a little bit like James Dean. And I was like, gosh, but he's in a knitted jumper instead of a leather jacket. But, mix that up. I was like, goodness gracious. But I didn't know he was born in Swansea. I thought he was born a little bit further out. And he was a reporter for what was the South Wales Daily Post, or what is the South Wales Daily Post. He achieved a lot, even as a teenager. And a lot of people back then, they didn't write as many memoirs that we're seeing today, because we're in an age where a lot of people are writing biographies for look at me, I've got a biography, rather than, and they are doing inspiring stories of how they've come from nothing and they've achieved, or they're writing something that they feel will help them get ahead in business. But I wonder how many of them are actually writing a book that is a being of service. So a lot of the research that I've been doing on memoirs over the last few years is that when we share our story, why are we doing it? What is the intention? Now, when I wrote Crossing the Line, I was like, this is not going to happen to anybody else, not on my watch. I am that person. I will go down the rabbit hole. I will study the law. I studied human rights law, criminal law, and family law so that I could write this book, so that anybody that was going through a false arrest or anything like that, or racism or sexism, and getting involved with the police, that they actually had a reference. Because I know that had my life been very different, had I not had my own business and been a police assessor and, somebody who helped, worked with the Chambers of Commerce and helped regenerate South Yorkshire, if I hadn't have been that woman and I hadn't been the strong woman that I was and had the level of education that I've got, there was no way I'd have won that court case. None. Absolutely no way. And that is one of the great things about, not just about myself, but, Dylan Thomas, Rowan Atkinson. We take this high level stuff that we know and we write it for other people that don't have that access. And it's so that we can make sure people are empowered, that we can actually bring together the high level thinking. Like I say, I always write my books so that my dad will read them, and my dad only reads, carp fishing magazines. And going through this book has made me go back through different memories that I had. And my mum's going to be 70 on the 3rd of May, and I'm making a list of 70 things that I remember from my childhood. And one of those things that that really does bring home is my mum was always dancing. So the next song I'm going to do is called Set Adrift on Memory Bliss. It's by PM Dawn. She wouldn't normally dance to that, but I'm going to play a song that hopefully I can find, because the playlist that I've got doesn't seem to be working. But I'm going to play Set Adrift on Memory Bliss now, and then we can get the news on the hour and go from there and see if we can get this to the next level. Okay, there you go. That was a song that I used to, when I was at college, after I would be given an assignment to write, I would go and read the material in the park. I'd lie there on the grass and look at the clouds. And I'd try and see what I could see in the clouds. And when I was learning about a bit more about Dylan Thomas, one of the things that people used to love about him was how he could create this imagery that with his poetry. Now, I'm learning more about the Welsh history and the great people from here. And one of the things that, as a writer, some people say, "Oh, do you know this writer? Oh, what about this?" And it's like, no, I don't know about every single writer or every single poet and author in the world. That would just be insane. But one of the things that learning about him was that, and if you think that this is still was so true today, he found it really incredibly difficult to make money from his poetry, from his writing. He really struggled financially, hence why he became a writer and a radio broadcaster. And when he was working with the BBC, that obviously brought him a lot more attention, so that would bring more attention to his books and in his writing. And it was interesting to find out that when he became famous and more people learned about him, he also succumbed to the erratic behaviour and drinking, which they don't know whether it was that made him fall gravely ill and into a coma, but he was known as the doomed poet. Now, why would you want to call somebody a doomed poet? I mean, is that a self-fulfilling prophecy that they imposed upon him? Is that something that came afterwards? It's like, I don't understand why people would do that. Words have power. And one of the things that a lot of us in the world today that write things that challenge a narrative, we get a lot of haters. And I always say to people, if you're getting haters, you're doing something right. Because you're challenging the status quo, you're challenging people's comfort zones, you're making them think, you're upsetting the apple cart, as it were. And that is a good thing, because people get complacent in the way that they think. And I always like to read things that challenge my view of the world, because it means I'm learning something new. I'm learning about other people, and it is really good to do that. And when you look at the life that he led, and this Dylan Thomas, for those of you who are joining in 4 years, he wrote 200 poems. 200 poems. What are we achieving today in 4 years? What are we achieving within our life? Now, he did die he died. I mean, he was younger than me when he died. And it's like, if this guy had not died, what would he have written about? What would he make of the world today? And it just, when we look back through history, I mean, like I said, I'm only looking back at my life over the last 10 years. And then I'm looking back at my life with my mum, you know, because it is her 70th birthday coming up. And the song I'm going to play after the news, you know, that is a song that her and I used to dance around the kitchen to a lot. Honestly, when this next song came on, it was like, I know something happened to my mum. You know, there would just be something that she would do. It just was that spark it gave her. But when you're looking back through someone's life and you're looking at the memories, so like I said, she's 70. I'm creating a list of 70 memories that I have with my mum, good and bad, mainly good. You know, how I remember when I felt I couldn't breathe at some point, and this is something that made me consider something my youngest son says to me. Whenever I get a bit stressed, he goes, "Mum, breathe. Mum, you need to breathe." I'm like, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "No, you're not." And he makes me go through these breathing exercises. And I remembered one of the memories I had, that my mum scooped me up in her arms when we lived in a place called Long Sutton. And I remember her running outside with me in her arms, getting me to breathe, because I'd stopped breathing. And obviously it's been something there that is, you know, it's a pattern. So I'm going to the Fire Night Breathwork ceremony at the Angel Hotel on the 12th of May, coming up in a couple of weeks. And breathwork is so powerful, and it can help release a lot of the trapped air and the toxic air that's in our bodies. And I don't profess to know exactly how it works, but you know, we don't exhale properly. So if any of you are going along to the Fire Night, the Phoenix Fire Night event on the 12th of May, it was going to be held at the stadium, but it's now going to be at the Angel Hotel, and that's on the 12th of May. Then do text in the show 07354 770 837, or if you've ever had any kind of breath work, or if Dylan Thomas is, you know, one of your favourite poets, then let me know. Just call in the show, text in the show. But again, looking what happens over people's lifetime. Now, I had a conversation with a young girl recently who was really cross with the authors, you know, Adolf Huxley, and I was thinking, but you have to look at what these men, what the things that they're writing about, because she was saying, you know, there's a lot of patriarchy. I was thinking, you have to look at what was going on at the time. What was going on in Dylan's life, you know, that was caused it to be so short? What makes somebody fall into a coma? What makes them drink heavily? You know, what pain are they going through? What is it that they're masking, or what they're numbing? Why are we drinking to excess here? Now, I've seen, since I've been back in Britain, I've noticed the amount of drinking that goes on. It's really excessive, and it's quite scary in a lot of ways. Everything is centered around drinking a lot of the time, and I hadn't been around that for 8 years whilst I was travelling. Was Dylan Thomas drinking because of the darkness of the war? Was he drinking because he just got used to it and it became a habit? You know, what was it in his life? I'm really fascinated by him now, and I don't know why that he should have all of a sudden taken my attention. I might actually get a book and start reading about him, but I've bought a new book. It's the Secret History by Donna Tartt, and I want to read that after the Miriam Margoyles book, but I really want to get that finished, because I have been loving it, but this last week I just haven't been able to do any reading of anything other than my own manuscript. But I know I'm waffling. I've been really thrown off my game again by the fact that this mixer is not doing what I want it to do. So I'm going to bring the news on, because we're at the top of the hour. And this is the thing, when you're thrown off your game, it really does get you. It's not good. It really is not good. Right then. So before I went and we went into the news, I was just thinking, what is it about Dylan Thomas that, has really really brought it home. Now, one thing about his character is that he was very good at getting sympathy, because he grew up being mollycoddled by his mother, because he had bronchitis and asthma as a child, and it was when I'm looking at writing Crossing the Line and learning about these things about Dylan Thomas, I never did that with my boys. I never mollycoddled them. It was like if they fell over, I would say, that was a great breakfall, and I'd give them a clap, I said, but next time do it like this. So I was never one of those mothers that ran to their child and went, oh, you poor thing, are you okay? Because when you look at children when they fall over, a lot of the time, they then look very quickly at the parent to see what the parent's reaction is, to then see what their reaction should be. So if the parents make a big deal of them falling over and things like that, then they're going to make a big deal of it. We do, as parents, lead our children, by our fears. We lead them by our comfort zone, no matter how big or small that is. And I'd always said to my boys, if you're going to take risks, and I really encourage you to take risks, know what to risk. Now, a lot of us that are in business, we risk a lot. We're the ones that, we're willing to put our homes and our cars and our lives on hold and, sacrifice a lot for the business to get it going, that a lot of people are not willing to. And I remember talking to a woman a few years ago who said to me that she would not want to give up her job to start her own business because she had her 6-figure salary, she had the job title, and she got all the pension and all the things to it. And but with all the skills that she had, I knew that she could make a lot more money. But she was so tied, her ego was so tied to the company and the salary and the job title. But sadly, 12 months later, she lost all of that. And she didn't know what to do with herself. And I was like, start your business. You've been wanting to do it, but been too afraid to do it because you were attached to a job title and a salary. And now you have the opportunity to go and make even more money. And she is making a lot more money as self-employed. And that's the thing about it. We've got that freedom. And with writers, we have this freedom to create scenes and, like I say, life by design. Now, Dylan didn't have to go and become a reporter or a broadcaster on radio. He could have just written poems, but would he have got the exposure that he needed? Nowadays, we've got social media, and I have been looking at how to use social media myself, and the things people share, I'm like, why would you want to share that? And then people say the same to me, but you write these books about certain aspects of your life, Dawn. I'm like, yeah, but I'm sharing these to inspire hope. And this is what, how is me sharing a picture of my dinner, how is that inspiring somebody else? And they're like, because your food, Dawn, is, it's international food, it's healthy food. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not somebody who wants to share my dinner. I want to eat it. I don't want it to get cold. If it's a hot meal, I want to eat it while it's hot. That's why we warm the plates, right? And I see so many people spending so much time faffing around getting the right angle for their food, and then they go, you can see that they've spent so long getting the right photo that their food is cold and they're not enjoying it. Why would you do that? That's just my take on it. But going back to the way in which we raise our children, getting them to take risks. I'd say to Nasser and Khalid that if you're going to jump off a wall, know how high it is and whether it's a little one, so you just bend your knees very slightly. If it, you go down into the frog position, if it's a little bit higher, are you going to need, a parachute to jump off that wall? Are you going to need a bungee? Know what risk you're taking and know what you need to do to prepare for it. And if we're not raising our kids to be able to take risks in life or be confident in stepping out of their comfort zone, i.e. the comfort zone that we have often as parents imposed upon our children because of our own fears, then we're doing our children a disservice by not encouraging to step outside that comfort zone. Our comfort zone has been created from a life that hasn't had all of this social media exposure, hasn't had every element of our life recorded on CCTV everywhere we go, or had everything tracked on our phones. And even the things on Facebook, you've got the Meta actually track your off Facebook activity. You have to go into the settings and actually turn it off, so it's not tracking all of your banking transactions, it's not tracking all the apps that you use, it's not tracking your maps and all of that off Facebook activity. If you do not turn off the settings within your Facebook account, it's there. They're tracking everything you're doing. I don't want people to track what I'm doing. I want to have quite a quiet, private life. But I do want to write these books that actually empower people to take control of their own lives again, actually believe in themselves, that they can actually achieve a lot of things. And again, looking at the memories of my mother, that I have with my mother, sometimes as mothers we have this guilt that we didn't do a great job. My mum's got 70 years coming up on Sunday. I'll be out racing with the White Knight crew, and but I want to give her 70 memories that I've treasured, so that she feels good and that she remembers them and that she knows that I remember them. And like I said, one of the biggest memories I've got of my mum, she's a complete nutter, absolute crazy lady. And I mean that in the best possible way. Some of the things that come out of my mother's mouth, I'm like, oh my God, let the earth swallow me whole. But I know that my boys feel the same sometimes. But this particular song that I'm now going to play, it's just, I remember my mum, whenever it came on, she would come and get me, whether I was doing my homework at the dinner table or we were in the kitchen cooking together, and this song would come on. She'd grab me by both hands and we'd start to dance. And I remember my mum and dad prattling about in the kitchen as well, and this song would come on, and and she'd just forget about my dad and she'd just dance with me to this song. And it's those things I want my mum to remember, all those joyous moments. And when I do well at school, and just those. And I also remember a time, I'm going to remind her of the fact that, when I started to go out, and I went downstairs one night in some hot pants, and my mum went, "Where are you going?" "King's Cross." "Get back up those stairs right now and put some jeans on." I put the jeans on over the top of the hot pants, obviously. She goes, "Do you think I'm stupid? Go upstairs, take off those hot pants and leave them upstairs." And she was going to check, but what she didn't realise was I'd bought 2 pairs. So anyway, this is one of my mum's and mine favourite song. It's Karma Chameleon by Culture Club. So I hope that you enjoy this as much as me and my mum have always done. That brought some memories back. Had a few tears then. And I always wondered why my mum would love that song so much. But then when I've been writing Crossing the Line, at the beginning of it, it talks about when I became a single mum and the amount of conversations that my mum and I would have, because when she became a single mum, she had to, she'd got 3 kids. And the fact that, she was no longer with my father, and then she met my dad, and again, I'm using those words very clearly, like my father is the man who's the biological sperm donor, and my dad is the dad. He was there and he raised us, and he invested time and money and effort into us. And like I always said to my dad is, anyone can be a father, but it takes a great man to be a dad. And so there is that distinction there. And when I'm going back through writing Crossing the Line, and I'm actually reflecting, and I include a conversation in the book with my mum about how things hadn't changed that much from when she was a single mum. The attitudes towards single mums, we tend to always get the blame and all the shame, but it's never the men that leave, the ones that do the dirty or that haven't got it within them to take responsibility. I was reading a story about a woman who, she had a really disabled child, and the father couldn't handle it and just left the mum at home with the child to deal with everything. And I'm not saying all men do that. I mean, gosh, there's some incredible men out there that, they really do take the role of parenting very seriously. But the conversations that my mum and I had, they've actually brought up quite a lot for me, which is probably why I'm having these bad dreams and not sleeping very well. But why would I put myself through it? Again, it's because I want my books to be better. I want to be able to acknowledge the people who have purchased my book, and all of them actually, and they've got questions. What happened here? And, when this happened, what did you do? Because you haven't covered that. And, was there anything that happened after the court case that impacted your life moving forward? And I was like, well, yeah, I've got to answer that. But at the time, these things that have impacted my life moving forward obviously hadn't happened. But it was the attitudes of society that hadn't changed. And when we look back at Dylan Thomas's life, why is it that creatives don't often receive the monetary, the remuneration that we're seeing people who take photographs of food on social media? Why is it that we write these things that, that whether it's Dylan's poetry, whether it is, the books that we write, why is it that there is something called the starving artist? What is it that actually puts that difference between a writer that makes lots of money and somebody who doesn't, or a painter or a sculptor, or a photographer? What is it that makes them different? And it's the way that people show up. It's how we diversify. It's how we see, because if we're going to be creative enough to create content, we have to be creative enough to create multiple streams of income. Now, I've always said to somebody, if you don't like looking for a job, you're not really going to like the life of an entrepreneur, because you're always looking for the next job. You're always looking for a new client. You're always looking for that next thing. I've got a young lady who in the studio who is looking for another hug from me. So she's now up here on my knee. She loves her cuddles with her mama, don't you, baby? And some people say to me, why do you have a dog with you in the studio? Well, some of us, we love our dogs, but some of us have anxiety dogs. Some of us, if you've been following my story or some of the articles on my website under Dose of Dawn, dawnbates.com /Dose of Dawn, then you'll understand, some of the things that I've been through, that actually, my dog is not just, a pet that I bring with me. She's somebody that, she helps bring my anxiety levels down. And they're there for a reason. And lots of us, we go through these things in life and these traumas. And this is the thing about, reflecting back on the content that we share. When Dylan was writing some of those poems, yes, it was, some of them were quite heavily linked to Christianity. But it's the times that he wrote about and the fact that his faith anchored him. But then if the faith anchored him and is supposed to give you, faith is supposed to give you peace, why was he the doomed poet? Again, there's just all of these contradictions within a writer's life, in all of our lives, and how do we actually make sense of all of them? And I tend to say to people, again, I'm a writer, make sense of your life by writing it down. Because as I said about the list of 70 things I'm writing for my mum, all the great memories and all the memories I have for her 70th birthday. I mean, I could send her a bunch of flowers. I could, take her out for dinner. But this list of 70 things about why she is my mother, and what that means for me and the memories that we've shared. I mean, she might not, be very involved in my life, and, we might not have a really great relationship. But she's still my mum at the end of the day, and we have to make peace with that sometimes, and look beyond, because our parents are only doing what they have the capacity to, based on the tools that they have, or the knowledge that they have, or the capacity that they have. And this is the thing about writing Crossing the Line and talking about my own parenting lifestyle. When I took my boys on a wild camping road trip, it was our first holiday since the divorce. I didn't have a lot of money. I was like, let's go wild camping. You're going into high school. You're going to be doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award. Let me prepare you for that. So I've downloaded all the things that they've got to learn for their Duke of Edinburgh Award. I've mapped it all out. We're off. We're going. We had a 7-seater car. I took out 4 of the seats, so we had plenty of room for all our camping equipment. The fire pit. We had plenty of room for Kelt, who was Chewy's husband. And again, it was like looking and researching all of that to be able to give my children a better life. But because of the sexism and the racism within the west coast of Scotland, the police officer saw a single mum with all of this stuff in the car, children of a different ethnicity. They didn't like the fact that I spoke Arabic. That was the moment they put me in handcuffs. But they accused me of willful neglect and abandonment because they thought we were living in the car. And we were for like 5 or 6 weeks. I mean, we were going to be there for 7 weeks, but we were touring Britain. We were on a mad road trip. We were on an adventure. But they couldn't bring that. They couldn't get their brain to figure it out. Much like me with this mixer, Oh, this mixer. Honestly, I am going to nail this. I'm so determined. I'm not a quitter. Sometimes I probably think I should be, but I'm not. And one of the things that, going back to this list for my mum and the reflections that this book is bringing up for me, my mum always used to say to me that she didn't hurry love. She never forced it, and she had to make sure that there was the man that she was going to marry to actually bring into our life as our dad. He would have to be someone really special. And you have to wait for that. You can't just keep dipping in and out of relationships, because while you're doing that, you're distracted and you're blocking the person who's going to show up for you. So even though my mum wasn't about manifestation, a lot of what she shared with me was about manifesting and making room for the right people to show up. Now, the next song I'm going to play is an oldie but a goodie. It is by Diana Ross and the Supremes. It is You Can't Hurry Love. And no, you absolutely cannot. It will show up and it will knock you sideways. And like a friend of mine and I were saying the other day, I'd rather be single and happy than be with somebody and miserable. So if you're wondering why you're still single, here's...
You're listening to The Literary Lounge with Dawn Bates on Radio Cardiff 98.7 FM.
There we go. A bit of Diana Ross and and some ads for you. My little jingle. Yeah. So, gosh, there's a lot to unpack with writing a book. But the great thing is, like I was saying earlier, you really get present to who you are. You get present to everything that you've been through, and it can help you kick imposter syndrome out the door. Whether you publish the book or not is irrelevant. But the fact that you go through your life and you go, this is who I am, this is what I stand for. The other great thing about when you write your own story is you start to see patterns of your own behaviour that could be stopping you from achieving something. It could be a limited belief. It could be a comfort zone that you're just so comfy in. Like I was saying earlier with my dad's hoodie and his slippers. His slippers were like 2 sizes too big for me, like the moccasin slippers, and his hoodie drowned in me. But it was like I was having a hug from my dad. I was sat in his garden, just looking out over the fields, hearing the bird song, watching what was unfolding, and just wearing his hoodie with my morning coffee. That was a very, very special memory for me. And there was another really great memory that I'm sharing with my mum, is that whenever we used to go down to Caister-on-Sea, my parents, they would always book into this particular bungalow. And my dad would love beach fishing, and it was the beach fishing that he did where he would take us that actually gave me my love of the sea. And I remember when I was 8 years old, I was sitting on the beach and we were looking out at the ocean, and I was like, I'm going to go and live out there. I was 8 years old, and I remember saying it, but I didn't realise how young I was when I said it. And my mum just looked at me and she goes, yeah, I have no doubt. It's like, even then she knew that I was that kind of person that, I'm going to say I'm going to do something and I'm going to do it. And but that particular day, I remember we went back early in the morning after a night out, sleeping on the beach under the bivvy, with sandwiches and she always used to have red Leicester, and Dad would always put like ketchup on it, and like I can't think of anything worse, but he loved it. When you start making a list of all the great memories you have with your parents to give them as a birthday present, it uncovers a lot more. And this is about the process of writing a book. Once you start writing about who you are and who you've become and the challenges you've overcome, you start with this evidence of just how powerful you've been and how much you have achieved in your life. And it doesn't matter whether they're huge achievements. It doesn't matter whether you've become the president of this. I mean, the president in some cases probably not worth talking about, but we're not getting political. But you might have beaten an illness, or you might be the first one in your family to buy your own home, or the first one to go to university, or the first one to leave for another country. All of these things matter. Everything that you have done in your life matters. You might have beaten an addiction. You might have walked away from a toxic relationship. You might have walked away from a business or a job, and you take that courage and you amplify it. And you keep writing about your life and, break it down into, years or really pivotal memories, and then work back from that. And if you need any help, then obviously I've created those resources for the author essentials. So if you just type in dawnbates.com, the author essentials, you can actually purchase the memoir breakdown, timelines. They're there for everybody to use because it's a great framework, and it gives you such a moment to pause. What is it that I've been achieving? And it also uncovers, dreams that you might have had that have got lost upon the way, that actually I'd really still like to achieve that. I've actually gained all of these skills now to bring that forward and actually go on to achieve it. Now, there are certain things that I thought I was going to do in life I haven't done, I don't want to do. And that's the other great thing about writing down everything that you've achieved and everything that you were going to do and what have you, because you actually go, yeah, no, that's not something I want to do, thank you very much. And it gives you this clarity. Excuse me, okay, that was Basement Jacks with Do Your Thing, and I really did do my thing there. I was coughing and spluttering all over the place. I wasn't really, but it was a real tickly cough. But again, when you write, going back to what I was talking about before I had the coughing fit, when you're writing down like each year of your life, in the memories of those, and you you're reminded of friendships that you once had or why you let go of them. You're reminded of these dreams and the hopes that you had and places you wanted to go to, things you wanted to achieve. And you can actually start making a new list and be reinvigorated about life, and really connect back to who you are on a deeper soul level, because a lot of the time we forget to be at one with our inner child, and our inner child is one of the greatest compass points that we can actually use. And I came to a realization I was sharing with a friend of mine in Australia the other day, a lot of us have used the words, like that part of myself is no longer there. That part of myself died. And I said, isn't it, when we say that, aren't we killing off a younger version of ourselves that actually gave us the power to move to the next one, that had these experiences to help us get into the next phase of our life? So why are we killing off that person and saying that part of me died? Sometimes we just have to go, that was a period of my life I don't want to go, I don't want to revisit. But the attributes that version of yourself created, you had to go through that to become the person you are now. And when you write it all down, it's really, really cathartic, and it can be so inspiring. And if you haven't got a life that inspires you, or you feel like you haven't, and you start to write it down, you become inspired. And if you're still not inspired at the end of it, go, okay, well, what is it that I can do that will really inspire me? What are the things that I wanted to do that I haven't done? And how do I go about making them happen now? Because this was the thing about when I was in the whole mess of the court case, and just got divorced after 18 years, found out all the stuff I'd found out about my ex-husband. I'm taking the boys on a road trip, I'm getting them ready for the Duke of Edinburgh Award, we're visiting family and friends, and boom, along comes this copper. And you're like, yeah, right, okay. And then it's like, rebuild your life. But the strength and resilience I had then has helped me get through so much, and it's also helped me be able to show empathy to other people and actually question, if that could happen to me, as somebody who was never in trouble with the police, who was, an upstanding member of the community, and all of that jazz. What is somebody who doesn't have much education, much money, much experience here in Britain, or how would they have felt? What would they have been going through? And the destruction that could have been imparted on their life. I won, and there was no way I was not going to win, because I knew too much about the law, and I made sure that I studied. I needed to study the law. I needed to study case law. I needed to study, what it was that was going on within Police Scotland at the time. I needed to look at the frameworks, the ethics. And I remember so many times that, I would be there at the dining room table with all the books laid out on the table, studying until late in the evening, and my boys would wake up and find me still at the table but slumped over the books, or still wide awake on coffee, and they'd be like, Mum, you need to go to bed. They would get themselves ready for bed. They'd get themselves ready for school, they'd get breakfast and everything like that, because that's how I raised them. I raised them to be responsible human beings. I raised them to be able to cook and clean for themselves, but not just cook egg on toast or a bit of beans on toast. I taught them how to cook like spaghetti bolognese, roast dinners. I remember Khalid, when I think it was about, how it must have been, we'd just come back from living in Egypt. So it was probably around about 11, 12 at the time. Decided he was going to cook us grilled Gressingham duck breasts with with Hasselback potatoes, and there was I can't remember what the salad that it was. It was delicious. It was like a blue cheese and pak choy salad, and it was just so delicious. And he was doing that at the age of 11, 12. And there are so many, a friend of mine, she's no longer with him, but he'd come home from work, like, where's dinner? And she'd be like, well, I've had to go out. He goes, well, what am I going to do? And she's like, well, the food's in the cupboard. He waited until she got home. I'm like, no, he's not a keeper. Like, you're a grown-ass man, or you're a grown woman. Why can you not cook for yourself? Seriously, it's not that difficult. And people think it is. And that might be something that when you're writing out your story, you actually realise about yourself, and you're spending all this money on processed food, which is not great for your health. But you could learn a new skill by buying vegetables. It's a lot cheaper and it goes a long way. It might not sound cheaper to begin with, but it is a lot cheaper to, buy vegetables and cook it. I can get 5 meals out of a chicken. Yeah, 5 meals out of a chicken just for me. When you know how to cook as a single mum, you know how to cook for but again, it's like when you really acknowledge who you are and you read back over your life, and it's such a powerful thing. And you start to see who was there for you in the darker times and who you might not have seen, because we are moving around a lot more. There are people that you might have lost along the way, and some of them for good reason. Others, life just took over. Reach out to them. How are they doing? That might be something, but you will always, always find something about yourself that will bring joy to you. And if your journey isn't one that brings you joy, writing it all down actually allows you to purge it out of yourself. I'm purging a whole new level of stuff I didn't even know I was holding on to. And when we talk about disease, it's actually dis-ease in the body, because things in our life are not aligned with who we truly are. We're either not exercising properly or we're not exercising at all. And that could be going for long walks. I'm not talking about going to the gym and pumping iron or running. And if you see me running, start running. There's something coming. I used to run. I used to do 10Ks like twice a week. But that's not who I am now. Swimmer, yes. And I love all the runners around Cardiff. I love seeing them, and you're all so inspiring. You all run so differently. It's amazing. Some of you are on tiptoes, some of you are plodding, some of you, the gear some of you wear, your calf muscles are amazing. All the gear that you've got, and then running together. I think it's great. And yeah. I'm not doing it. But then people think I'm a bit of a lunatic because I swim 2,000 metres in the pool. But there we go. I like swimming, what can I say? But again, it's like you really get to know where it is in your body. If you're not happy with yourself, where are you feeling that unhappiness in your body? Focus on that part of your body that's not feeling great, and focus on it, and imagine what it would feel like if that felt better. Release the emotions around that. What could replace that, and how could you tap into that feeling? And when you've purged it out through writing, whatever it is, acknowledge it, thank it, because it got you to where you are, and you can actually release it. You really can. You can release that pain. It is called dis-ease in the body. And a lot of it is because we're not living in alignment. We're not surrounding ourselves with the people we know that will help us achieve the life that we want to achieve. They're not there to amplify the happiness. Because we have to remember that no one can make us happy. Only we can make ourselves happy. Taking part in lots of different activities. Now, a friend of mine, Derek Brady, if you're listening, Derek, hello. He kept saying to me, Dawn, you need different activities. everything you do is surrounded by your work. Every like philosophical discussions, reading, you write for a living, and you write. And I'm just like, yeah, I really like it. So today I'm taking myself out on a date. I'm going to watch The Devil Wears Prada 2, and I'm very excited about this. We've had to wait 20 years for it. I mean, really? It's not taken 20 years to write the thing. I know there's been, world events in the middle of it, but a lot of us are really looking forward to it. So if you're going to watch it today, I nearly was like, oh, I could do a show on it, but I'm like, oh, I don't want to. And again, people were surprised that I used to love receiving my copy of Vogue. I loved Vogue, and I'd keep all of my copies, and then when I went off travelling, obviously I got rid of all of them, and I gave them to the fashion design course at Sheffield College, and one of the reasons why I used to love it, because I'm not a fashion, I'm not fashionable. Apparently I'm stylish, but I'm not fashionable. I don't feel stylish. I just put on what I like and feels comfortable. But I used to love learning about fabrics and textures and colours that they would use, and why those colours were chosen, and where did that influence come from, like the creatives, why did they make that fabric that way, and what did that culture bring to this designer, and where did they get the inspiration from, like from the earth, or from just like the sky. And it was like, Vogue is not just about the adverts. I mean, there was a lot of adverts in Vogue, but it was the articles that I would just devour them. Like my Friday morning would be put aside for that. So I have always had an interest in fashion, in the sense that it's that creativity. It's about how do they bring all of these fabrics and things together. I mean, what we're seeing on the catwalk, that sometimes I'm just like, really, seriously, what the heck is that? That's not clothing. That's just wrong on every level. Like, what is that? You couldn't even wear that. But obviously some people do. I mean, it looks like they've just put a load of... I mean, it's all subjective, isn't it? It's all art. Some of it. Anyway, we are getting towards the end of the show. I do have one more song. And again, this was a song that got me through the dark time in my life, the Scotland saga. That's what we're calling it. And it was one of those songs that I'd put on, and where my mum would play, or whenever Karma Chameleon would come on by Culture Club, this was a song that me and my boys would dance to. And it seems to be a thing with my family. This is one of the things that I do carry on with my boys and I. We love listening to music together. We share songs. We love cooking together in the kitchen. Music is on. I have a date night every week with my youngest son. Just so we have an hour conversation. We have one later on today. Now he's at university, it's not so easy. But we always make that time for each other. Always. And this next song is something that we would always play. And we would groove around about it. We would get the funk on, and it would just be so much fun. And it's those things that I'm being reminded of that we've done as a family, and what we actually went through, and what's made us stronger, and the lessons that we all learn. And I remember one of the things that my eldest son said when they were questioned in the courtroom was how the judge had asked them, is there anything that you'd like to ask? So my eldest said, why is it we're encouraged to read Enid Blyton books and 5 go off on an adventure, but when our mum takes us on an adventure, you arrest her? And I was like, boom. How out of the mouths of babes. Absolutely loved it. I was so proud of him in that moment, honestly. And my youngest sat there and he was like, yeah, actually. But again, it's like when you're reading it back and you're remembering those moments, in your life, they are so priceless, and you deserve to remember them. You deserve to know that you are more powerful than you realize. You deserve to remember the dreams that you had. And I really do encourage all of you to, start journaling, start writing down every year of your life. I mean, you're probably not going to remember the 0 to 1. I don't remember 0 to 1. But there are things that you will remember. Start making a list of them. Start writing about certain events in your life. It doesn't matter if you've got the grammar correct or the spellings correct. It doesn't matter how you do it. I mean, I do it with notepad and pen. I buy the journals, whether it's lined paper or whether it is like plain paper, however you want to do it. Just start writing about your life, because you matter. You really, really do. And I really want you to be proud of yourself in everything that you've achieved and everything that you've overcome. And in true fashion, before we close off, I'm going to play this song because this is such a cool tune and it will take us into the weekend, Dawny style. So here we go. This is Groove Armada with some Superstylin'. Have a great weekend, folks.